My name is Haans. I am a Sea Shepherd crew member. I have done 10 campaigns in 6 years. I was on the longest sea chase ever in maritime history on the Bob Barker. I was a ship manager of the Steve Irwin for 2 years. I was also chief mate and ship manager on the Ocean Warrior and the Steve Irwin. I have circumnavigated the entire planet, and I have been to places I never even imagined that I'd ever be, and one of the most amazing places I've ever been to was Antarctica. So I've been there 3 times. It was the most amazing experience. I started out being an onshore volunteer. I actually found out about Sea Shepherd through a video clip on YouTube about the dolphin slaughter in Taiji, which I'm sure you all know about. And from there, it kind of steamrolled. I actually, at the time, owned a nightclub in Melbourne, and I'm also a licensed private investigator. I know, weird. So I actually, when I came across the dolphin slaughter in Taiji, I decided that I wanted to do something to help protect the dolphins. I started protesting at the front of the Japanese embassy. I got phone calls and emails and messages from the federal police asking me what I'm doing, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I think is right. And then I went to Anti-Whaling Day and found all these people in black and white, and I'm like, who are all these people in these Sea Shepherd clothes, and who is Sea Shepherd? And for the first time in a year, I actually felt like I wasn't alone in the way I felt about these animals. In that time, I had transitioned to veganism. I literally locked the door of my nightclub and walked away, because my life values changed. I no longer valued the fact that I owned a nightclub and that I was, making money. None of that mattered to me anymore. So I left it all behind, changed my life, and 9 years later, here I am standing here talking to you guys. So one of the times down in Antarctica, I'll just tell you a quick story being down there. Aside from the fact that it's a most beautiful, pristine area, in Antarctica, a lot of people don't realise it's 24-hour daylight during the summer months. So I'm on the midnight watch. I go up to the bridge. I was a quartermaster at this stage, and when I first came onto the ships, I didn't even know what a quartermaster was. So I had to figure that out, and it turns out you do navigation. Who knew? So I got to steer the ship, and I had a pretty good watch officer who was training me in all this. And this is the time when Whale Wars was on, so we had a camera crew that stayed on the bridge with us and filmed everything that we did. So I'm very, very new to all of this. I've never been a marine background at all. I have known nothing about ships. I just had the passion to be there, and I harassed Peter Hammerstead enough that he actually gave in and let me go. So I'm down in Antarctica, and I get up for my midnight watch. It's 24-hour daylight, like I said, so the sun's shining, but it's in the middle of the night. And I come out on the bridge, and all the crew are going crazy. Everyone's going nuts. Everyone's awake. Everyone's up on the bridge, running around the decks. The deck team is up, getting the small boats ready. And I'm like, what's going on? And right next to us, next to our ship, I was on the Steve Irwin for this one. Next to us was the Bob Barker. And we were both tailing the Nisshin Maru. For those of you who don't know the Nisshin Maru, it's the last remaining factory ship in the world that actually cuts up, and that's where they cut up and process all the whale meat. So the Nisshin Maru was right in front of us, and we'd been tailing the Nisshin for 8 days, but we hadn't seen any of the harpoon ships for 2 weeks. So the 3 harpoon ships and their security vessel, called the Shonan Maru, had all disappeared, and we hadn't seen them for 2 weeks, so we just assumed that they had gone to refuel. So while we were chasing the Nisshin Maru is actually, we can keep up speed-wise. We're the same speed, so it's about 15 knots. And that's pushing our old ships, let me tell you, with the engines on our old vessels. But the 3 harpoon ships and the Shonan Maru can do about 22, 24 knots, so they can outrun us. So when I came up to the bridge, I saw on the radar that the 3 harpoon ships were behind us. They had come out of nowhere. They knew exactly where we were because we were chasing the Nisshin. And it was a full-on attack in the middle of the night, again, broad daylight, so you could see everything. And one ship came in between the Bob and the Steve and crossed our bow. The other 2 ships came on the starboard side and crossed our bow. And they were all tailing lines about 150 metres long with a buoy at the end of that line. So it was holding the line up. So they were basically trying to get the ship to cut in front of our ship and the line to go underneath and get caught in our propellers. It's called prop fouling. It's actually one of our old tricks, but they are very good at it as well. So They kept crossing our bow and trying to stop us, and we had to push the ship to the side every time they crossed our bow, and we were getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And after 9.5 hours, the ships had crossed our bow 33 times, and every time they missed us, they would go straight over and do it to the Bob Barker. So they basically circled us for 9.5 hours, and eventually the Nisshin Maru was off our radar. It was a very well-planned attack from the Japanese whaling fleet. I was quite impressed with their tactics. It worked. However, we did lose that one. But I do remember the very next day, it was a beautiful sunny day just like this, icebergs everywhere, freezing cold, but the sun was shining. And I went and took my lunch and I sat down on the bow of the ship outside in the sun, all rugged up, Antarctic style. And the Bob Barker, the Sam Simon, the Steve Irwin, the Nisshin Maru 1, the Nisshin Maru 2, the Nisshin Maru 3, and the Shonan Maru were all drifting, looking at each other. We were all just sitting there looking at each other because it was sort of like, who's going to go first? Because if we go, they're going to chase us. If they go, we're going to chase them. So it was a bit of a standoff for the whole day. But the best part about the day was that all the whales that were swimming in between all the ships and coming up and breaching, and not one harpoon was able to be fired because they knew we'd go in full attack. We had the boats ready to go. So it was a most amazing and beautiful experience, but also very frustrating at the same time. But that's kind of what we're up against when we're down there. It's hard work. It is hard work being on the ships. I do encourage anyone who has time, like 2 to 3 months up your sleeve. It's something that changes your life. There's nothing like being out on a ship. And you don't have to have a marine background, as I didn't. They will teach you everything there. And it's just something that's life-changing to be able to go out to sea and haul in a net that a fisherman has illegally placed in the water, and you get to pull these animals in. Unfortunately, most of them are dead, but the ones that you get to throw back in the water alive, there's nothing like it. I got to throw a shark back alive once in the water, and when we pulled in the nets from the Operation Icefish, it was the first one, and I was on the Bob Barker for that one. We pulled in, the Sam Simon pulled in nets. The net was 72 kilometres long. That was a broken piece of the net. That's one piece that we pulled in. Took them 2 weeks to do it, 24 hours a day. It was amazing what this crew of the Sam Simon did pulling in that net. But when they pulled in those nets, they were after the Patagonian toothfish, but a lot of the bycatch is on that as well. So there's a lot of sharks, a lot of turtles, a lot of marine life, crabs, octopus, everything. And a lot of the crabs had egg sacs. So you're taking out 2 generations. So when we're having to pull all these nets in and they're just nothing but dead animals, you're taking out generation after generation. So this is what's happening in our oceans. We call them ghost nets, and there's hundreds of them floating around the water still. There was another campaign I did when I was in Tanzania recently. I was on the Ocean Warrior for this campaign. And a lot of people say to me, oh, why don't you do things for humans? Why are you doing things for animals? I'm sure a lot of you people have all heard that as well. I'm not preaching to the choir here. Yes, I'm seeing yeses. Yes, why don't you do things for humans? There's things that we do out there that people don't know that we do. There was one time, I had just been in Tanzania about 2 weeks. I was an officer on the bridge, and second officer, and I went up to my watch one day, and again, the crew were all up, and everyone was sort of in a bit of a frenzy. And I was like, what's going on? And she said, the officer above me, she said, there's people on the boat. I was like, what do you mean? So I looked out the back porthole, and there were 61 refugees sitting on the back of our ship. We had rescued a dhow. A dhow is like an old wooden boat that the Tanzanians used to smuggle things back from the mainland to the islands. And it's just a wooden boat. There's no showers, no toilets, no plumbing, no way to cook anything, nothing. It's just literally a wooden boat with a mast, that's it. And they were sitting on top of their luggage. They had been they got caught in the tide and the rip. For 2 days, we're drifting out at sea. There were 3 kids on board as well. So we rescued the dhow, and we put all the people on board, and we put some of our Marines, because we worked with the Tanzanian Marines, we put some of our Marines on their boat with the captain of that boat. So we took the Tanzanians they were coming out of Kenya. We took them to land, dropped them off, went back to get the dhow and get our Marines back on board, but the dhow had drifted back into Kenya. So unfortunately, we don't have jurisdiction in Kenya, so we weren't allowed to go there. So we very quietly snuck in, and found our dhow. It was actually hidden in a cove, had drifted right into a cove. We found the dhow, and we found our guys, and we also found the Kenyan Coast Guard. Of course, our Marine guards have guns, so they're seeing us as a threat. It took about an hour for us to negotiate with them to get them to understand who we were and what we were doing, and in the end, the Kenyan government helped us, and we managed to get all those people back onto a bus, took them to Kenya and to get all their luggage and back again. So these are the sort of things that we're facing all the time. There's also the ice fish campaign when we chased the thunder and they sunk their own ship right in front of us and we had to rescue the crew. A lot of human trafficking is involved in that, and a lot of these people, they suffer a lot of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse to do these contracts on these ships, and no one is there to help them. So when we rescued the crew of that ship, we managed to get all the Indonesians who were in the human trafficking back to Indonesia, and the captain and the 2 of the officers were arrested and are still in jail today. I've learned a lot of lessons over the years. The thing that I've learned, when I first started doing this, I was a really, really angry vegan. Been vegan for 9 years now. I was one of those vegans that would yell and scream at people and, you know, you can't do this, and yell at all the meat eaters and loud. The louder I thought, the better I would be. I've learned over the years that doesn't work. I'm actually, from being on the ships and managing international crew who are all volunteers, I've learned how to respect other people and how to respect opinions, and I have a lot more patience, believe it or not. And I also appreciate other opinions. I do get angry still time to time, every now and again. Facebook really upsets me a lot, so I try to not get on there too much. But I also do want to say my piece, and I think that all the in-house fighting that's going on with all the vegans and all the Facebook pages and all the Instagrams and everything, it's all just such wasted energy. And people need to start understanding other people's opinions, and everyone has different forms of activism. I now am taking a year off the ships. I'm living in Melbourne. I manage a health food shop, and I get to talk to people about vegan food all day. I love it. It's nice and quiet, very low key. In 6 months' time, I'll make a decision whether I go back to the ships or not. At this stage, I'm quite happy where I'm at, and I'm really looking forward to maybe rescuing another dog. But that's my form of activism now, and I like that. I get to talk to people about vegan food all day. It's happiness. And other people have their other things. I've been into the chicken sheds and broken into in the middle of the night. I've done all that. As a private investigator, I got undercover footage and helped close down a sale yard in Geelong in Melbourne. I've done all that action. But I understand that people go through their own journeys. But you just got to remember, everyone has their own form of activism, and we've got to stop in-house fighting with each other and know that it's the people out there who don't understand us, it's all about education. Okay, now I got that off my chest. I really want to empower the younger generation to follow their dreams. I feel like people need to be a bit more adventurous and open and understanding, and these younger generations that are coming into the shop or coming into Sea Shepherd, or I actually go to schools and I teach kids about ocean conservation, and they're all very inquisitive and they're like sponges. They soak everything up. They might sit there all staring at me and going, what is she saying? I think they're actually looking at me like I'm an idiot. But the teacher always messages me after or sends me an email and says, oh, they all talked about this and they talked about that. And I'm like, really? I didn't get that vibe. I just thought they were like staring at the wall behind me. But they do. It does make a difference and it does work. And I get lots of beautiful messages from students and kids and saying, can you come to my school? Can you come to my school? Yeah, I'll go to every school I can go to, if I can. But yeah, it's the next generation, and I really, really hope that we can empower more children to pick up the pieces. Unfortunately, they're going to have to fix the mistakes from my parents' generation and from our generation. But someone's got to do it, and if we don't do it soon, again, I'm preaching to the choir, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that where's Zach? Q&A? Just before the Q&A, I think Zach's going to do Q&A. I just wanted to thank Sea Shepherd Adelaide. Thank you very much for everything you guys do. And I want to thank Lee for this amazing event every year. Yes, go Zach.
Does anyone have a pressing question for Haans? What would you like to ask?
So I'm just wondering, is it true that we will run out of fish in our oceans from like 2050, and I guess for some people here they may still be eating a little bit of fish. Sometimes that's the animal that finds its way on people's plates still as they're seeking, you know, to veganism. So how dire is it that people take those sea animals out of their diet?
Well, aside from the plastic and mercury that's in fish, as we all know, fish is full of mercury, especially with dolphins, sharks and whales. They're the apex predators and they're the highest levels of mercury. And now they're finding plastic in table salt. So for the health reasons, stop eating fish. For the oceans, it literally is dying out. It breaks my heart when I see those kelp tablets. You know, that's whale food. You know, like it is. We're killing it. We are killing off the oceans and going out there. And I've seen it all for myself. It's heartbreaking. You know, going from chicken sheds to seeing these fish that are caught in these nets and the other animals. And I remember one time we were like pulling in a net that these 6 Chinese fishermen had left behind. We hauled in this net. It was longer than the Steve Irwin. Steve's 60 metres long. It was probably 3 times the length. And I was watching these seals playing in the net, and they were taking the fish out. They're like little puppy dogs, and they lay on their back, and they put the fish in there like that, and they shake it like a bone, and then they eat it, and they swim around, and you know, and they're just gorgeous. And then 3 days later, we pulled 2 of those seals in dead. You know, we had to use the crane to get them in. They were so heavy. But that's what we're facing. It's bycatch. There's so much of it. And people, I can't even explain to you how bad it is. Oh, I've got a friend.
Someone's jumped. Can you hear me?
No.
All right. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I think someone was running up to ask you a question, but they've chickened out. So does anyone else have a question for Haans? Well, we've got the privilege of having her here.
Yes.
Can I talk to you after this about maybe getting on a ship?
Yes, please. If anyone wants to get on a ship, please come and talk to me. I've got all the information that you need, and I encourage anyone and everyone to apply. You do not have to have a marine background to be on a Sea Shepherd vessel. We've got 13 ships in our fleet. We're doing work non-stop all over Africa, all over the world. The Steve Irwin has retired in Melbourne at the moment, so she's out of action. But there's just amazing things that we're doing now, and with IUU fishing and over in Africa, and working with governments over there now. It's just, and we have the Marines on board. I can't even begin to tell you. I don't have enough time to tell you all about it, but please come and speak to me about joining up, and I can tell you how to do it.
Is there a mission or a moment that you can say was your proudest moment in all the times that you were on board the vessels?
My proudest moment? Oh my God, all of it. I think when I was steering the Steve Irwin through an ice field, and I managed to get through without waking the crew. I did hit a growler once. If I'm going to hit a growler, it's a chunk of ice that comes off an iceberg, and they float around the water. They're bigger than your car, but they're a lot bigger underneath the water than what they are on top. So they're called growlers because they actually slide along the side of your ship and they growl when they come past you. So if I'm going to hit one, I've got to hit it right on the nose of the ship because that's the strongest part. And one time I actually did growl on the side of the ship. I woke a deckhand up and he came up and had a go at me, and I'm like, well, sorry for saving your life or anything, you know, okay, we're still alive here. You're welcome.
Do need their sleep, I understand. Do we have any other questions for Haans?
Everyone's going to think of him when I get off.
Yeah, well, do have a chat to her afterwards because she's got lots to share and a lot of tips about how you can get involved with this Sea Shepherd mission. And do you want to just tell everyone about what you've got coming up in the cooking tent a little bit later?
Oh, yeah. So when I came off one of my I can't remember which one now. There's one of my campaigns. A lot of the crews really struggle getting back into society because you're around on a ship for 3 months with the same people who feel the same way you do. So it's easy to get along. But when you come back to society, we really struggle blending back in. I remember one time it took me 5 weeks to leave the house because I just couldn't cope with the destruction outside the front door. So I started a YouTube channel. It's kind of like my way of venting my own stupidity. And it's like, you know, artists sculpt and people paint. I started a YouTube channel. And it's just vegan cooking. And I have a host all the time. So tonight I'm going to do a demonstration 4 ways to make tofu. And Zach's going to be one of my guests on the show. So please come down to the cooking tent, 6 o'clock tonight, cooking demo.
And do check out her YouTube channel. Because
it is very stupid, just FYI.
It is a great video with a very charismatic guest making my own quiche recipe. That guest was me, and it's a fantastic time. So there's a lot of really great videos. And I wouldn't say I've stolen, but I've been inspired by many a recipe I've seen on your YouTube
Oh,
channel.
really?
So
Actually, Jeff Hansen, our managing director, has taken a few of my recipes as well. And some of them are actually filmed on the Steve. We filmed our one on the Steve.
Oh, it's a massive privilege.
Yeah.
Although I got my cooking start in a galley and I forgot about how sweaty and enclosed they are. So it's not a pretty video, but it is a fun video. So do check out all of the great things that Haans is doing and come see us in the plant-powered cooking tent at 6 o'clock. Tofu 6 Way kicking off with mine in 4.
ways.
Go
Tofu
figure out
4
another
ways.
2. I've just promised the people 6. We're going to be kicking off with tofu noodle soup, which is one of my favourites. So at least come to see that part. But there's a whole hour of special guests, and we've got James Aspey, Claire Mann, and a mystery 4th guest,
Yep.
which will be a surprise for all of us.
Yep.
Thank you
Thank
to
you,
Haans for
everyone.
visiting us and sharing her brilliant stories.